Hey, Cheyenne's Debate. Let's talk about one of the most important things that you can do to be successful as a policy debater: writing blocks. Let's start with the basics. What is a block? A block is an argument or set of arguments that debaters write before they go into a round. So it's pre-prepared responses to something that your opponent might read. So why should I write blocks? Why should I spend that time? Simple. Readers beat talkers. Writing a block allows a debater to think about arguments that they want to make, either in support of their position or in response to their opponents. You can write out these arguments before you go to tournaments. You can practice them and you can refine them. This allows you to make the best possible arguments that you can in round. It also saves prep time during rounds. Rather than using that time to write arguments you could have written out ahead of time, blocks allow a team to use prep time for issues that come up in a round, new arguments you didn't anticipate, or more importantly, devising strategy. So when do I write blocks? Before tournaments, if it's not obvious by this point, but you should be writing blocks just about any time you're not in a round. My rule of thumb is, if you hear an argument that you haven't heard before, we should write a block to it when we are not competing. And if we can anticipate what our opponents are going to say, we should be writing a block to it. The ultimate goal is that by midway through a season, you should be prepared ahead of time for just about anything your opponents might throw at you. So how do I block? 5 steps. Step 1, identify what you actually want to write responses to. This is an underrated aspect of blocking. You just don't go about it willy-nilly. You say, okay, I've heard a new disadvantage, so I need to write a block to that. Or I've heard an affirmative team make a new set of responses to our disadvantage, so I'm going to write a block to that. Step 2, open up a Word document. That's where you should be doing your blocking. Not on paper, but on a Word document that you can save electronically and upload to our Dropbox. That way the team gets the benefit of those blocks, and vice versa, you get the benefit of your teammates doing the same thing. Step 3, draft your arguments. You may need to do some research, find some evidence, or utilize existing evidence that we have. You may need to write out analytical arguments that attack various parts of whatever it is that you are drafting your block to. Step 4, edit your arguments. Editing is a really important part of doing anything well from a writing standpoint. Your arguments that you deliver in round should not be draft 1. They should probably be draft 5. And then step 5, repeat. Again, as I said, we want to have blocks for just about everything. We want to be so prepared that really the only time in a round where we are writing out arguments kind of on the fly and utilizing prep time should be in the rebuttals. In the constructive stages, we want to be prepared for just about everything our opponents are going to throw at us. And as you'll find as you get more into policy debate, the ability to do that is a lot easier than you may think. So let's take a look at what a block actually looks like. Here's an example of a block that we would utilize for the second affirmative constructive. This is from the arms sales topic, and it is a set of responses to what we call the alliance disadvantage. To give you some context, this negative disadvantage argued that if we end arms sales or reduce arms sales as the resolution required, that would weaken our system of alliances around the world, and that would be bad. So this is a pre-written set of responses to that argument. You'll notice we're in a Word document, and you'll notice right off the bat that we have a header that lets us know what this is to. Then we get into evidence. We have a number 1, so this would be the first argument we would make in the 2AC. No link. Arms sales are only part of what alliances. The neg oversimplifies the issue. There's a second argument based on another piece of evidence. Scroll down, there's a third argument with evidence, a fourth argument with evidence, and then you'll notice we have analytical arguments. So argument number 5 is no link or impact. We still sell weapons to key allies like NATO and Japan. Then there's 6, 7, and then there are here, it's an if-then. If, for example, there's a specific impact argument the negative makes, we had pre-written arguments to that. So what you should take away from this is a block really isn't that complicated. It's evidence, analytical arguments, all put together and ordered that you can read them in the 2AC. 2AC is the most obvious place for those because you can block out off-case positions and on-case arguments that the negative is likely to make or that you've heard before. But you can do the same thing in the 2NC or the 1NR by writing out responses to common affirmative counters to a disadvantage, or you can write out explanations of case evidence that you would read to make your job easier in explaining those in a round. But the bottom line here is the opportunity to write blocks is virtually endless, and the benefit in and out of rounds is enormous. Because as I said, readers beat talkers.